always call the civil rights movement a struggle. Just like you would understand this. Ain't no use you get on the highway, it ain't got no place to go, you in other folks' way. Or you shouldn't jump in the river unless you already know how to swim. I intend to learn real quickly. You know, I've been near drowned 3 times trying to learn how to swim. So, so that's why when I went to St. Augustine, Florida, to invade the beaches, you know, segregationists had. The lawyer who arrested me in Florida, when 14 rabbis came down. And one man comes up to me and says, so kind, he said, oh, Reverend, he says, I am so honored to be with you in jail today. I said, man, do you realize we're in jail? Yeah, he says, it's an honor. I said, well, good. And they, at the same time, this lawyer, they had gone back out and got, had a little young white lady and putting cattle prods on him. And this rabbi's blood rushed to his head. He got red in that sweater. What's red? Yeah, real red. And we saw him way off, and every once in a while he put the cattle prod on him, you know. She'd fall, she wouldn't walk, it went limp. And they were calling her white this and a white that, you know the words, I don't need to say that. Some words I don't like to say, but people say out of the church. And so when he got closer, maybe a little closer in the back, well, you could hear him cursing and doing this. And I'm in jail and I see his face. I said, that's the guy who arrested me. Klansman, you see, openly. My God, aren't you glad God is with you and where you are and where you go? So the rabbi was angry just putting this cattle prod on this young girl. She screamed every time he fought. He said, so-and-so, I ain't gonna say I sometimes say him, but I don't say him right. And he cursed and said, so he got close enough so the man heard him. So he came, he dropped the girl on the outside of the door by here where that sign, and came around and the man opened the door for him. He gonna come in and beat up a rabbi. And so I knew the rabbi probably would have gotten in a fight. I knew if he had, if you touch a policeman, this thing, you give the offense, you know that. Remember Bill 58? And I said, Rabbi, just be quiet. So I put my arms around him. So the man came in and he said, what the hell you got to do with it? And the rabbi went down, so I just patted him. I said, no, this is me. So I said to the officer, I said, now, officer, I said, you have sense enough. This is St. Augustine, Florida, the oldest city in the United States. He said, yeah, and I'll show you what I'll do. He's ready to hit the rabbi with a billy stick. And I think the rabbi wanted to get hit since he was already in jail. But it would just have been something that wouldn't have proved anything, but how bad the system was. And so I said to him, now, officer, you don't want to beat up somebody in jail already in your custody. He said, what the hell you got to do with it? And I'm black too, you know. I said, well, I'm sure you know that the world is watching St. Augustine now. And even you just don't do everything in public, officer. I said, you gonna beat up a rabbi who couldn't resist you if he could? How that's gonna look? And you know, he hadn't thought about it. He finally gave a thought. Guess what he said? He gave a thought. He said, well, damn your soul, and turned around and walked out. We lived through this, my friends. And the world is almost like that now. My final thought. The world is like this because we have practiced violence and meanness and hate, even since the Civil War. And after the Civil War, when Lincoln supposed to unite the country, we had a system of 100 years that whites had to give no respect to blacks. Well, I'll let you ask me about the Birmingham or anything else. I think I've talked enough, but I still got a lot to say. You must remember you can't be in this 50 years and not have something to say. Thank you for listening. I saw 2 hands at one time. Whenever I see it, two go up at the same time. I said, one got the most religion. Speak up. No, I'm just kidding. Let's get his hand since he's furthest away.
I just wondered.
Speak loud, please.
I got a two-part question.
When I hear that, it kind of puts me on. That's all right. Go ahead.
I just wondered if you would speak to the most discouraging time in the movement that you had, and maybe the most encouraging.
One of the most discouraging times. Now, it wasn't. I don't guess any time is more discouraging than others, because the same is the level is the same. You are back as far back as you can get. And ain't no place to go but forward, and you can't do that fast because you got a system set up here designed to last. Segregation was designed to last 1,000 years also. And in this situation, the whites, many of the whites who did not understand that they too were incaptivated, but the Klan represented them. See, you've heard, I think I said the other day, I have never believed that most white people would just see me as a person, even though I was protesting, even though I was against segregation. I don't believe that the average white person would just jump on me in the street, but you have to have a squad like that. You understand what I'm saying? And so it was at that time that I had not only that, but I had the middle class, and this was during the demonstration, was saying that we had a time when A.G. Gaston and others met with some white people, and they thought that they could get some emphasis that they were going to speak. But they've been speaking for years and hadn't said nothing, hadn't done anything. And so I got in Cincinnati. I came in Cincinnati. I left Birmingham, rather, just an hour to fly. And when I got to my office in Cincinnati, my secretary had gotten off, but she had left a note on the front door of the church. Please go to your office. And Martin Luther King here, Ralph and others, and the middle class had deemed to come out and speak. And the question, some of them said, the end of their statement, I don't remember all this, we stand ready and willing, local, something like that. What the, and the white people glad to call them local leaders. When I was an outsider, yet I lived here. It might have been more justified to call Martin than others. And the statement, A.G. Gaston was in this too, who had the $1 million, but he still didn't go through the Tutwiler Hotel after integration till I did. Poor man walks in from Saudi Arabia. Am I right? He had over $1 million way back there when I was half young, I guess. But when the integration came, we went through Tutwiler at the same time. And so the statement was, we stand ready and willing. It had come to some of them that they could begin speaking, but there wasn't no time yet for that. You see the fighting, you got to have some war. See the bombs be dropping even when peace begins to talk, you understand? And so I turned around and caught the next plane back. And got here that evening, time for us to be in the older section of the motel. Where's the motel? Right here, back here. So Martin was always very nice. It hurt Martin to make anybody angry. Well, at that time, I didn't give a tinker's darn who got angry. Because I knew we weren't going to have people in jail like we were. It's kids at that, most of them. And anybody going to do so. Martin had talked to him, and he said some nice words. We call it Sweetwater speech. Well, I never practiced lying. And we had told our people, quit smiling when you ain't happy, and quit scratching when you're not itching. So I said to them after Martin spoke, I said, well, now, gentlemen, really, Martin is trying to be nice. I said, but you all already know me. I said, well, for me, Martin wouldn't be here. And it looked like now you're going to join with the white folk to get him out, but that just won't work. I said, up to now, we haven't boycotted any black folks. But be it known that we could start tomorrow. I made the decision. I was struck with fire hose. I still made the decision. And this picture that most people think I was doing the funeral, I wasn't doing no funeral. You know what happened to old Dusty in that picture? What the one with me with my hands wide open there. You seen that picture? In all of the books. Now that was one of the time, and that's why I refer to that. You see, it's hard when you're doing things and doing your very best, and it looked like all of the problems that ought to be going right by now. See, we had at least 3,000 people in jail then. And oh yes, it says in here, this is the one. Somebody thinks that the girl's funeral. No. In the photograph above, outspread arms, I said these words: when you're squeezed in from both sides, it's hell. That's what I was saying. I was saying what I felt, that people who were not going to push ought to be quiet. Or at least respect those who are fighting the dog or doing everything. That's what they. But I never thought, my friend, to answer your question, take it a little further than you asked me, I never thought that God was not able to deliver us. I never got disgusted. I always believed we could win because I know God can't tell a lie. See, he wouldn't have me depend on him to save me, and he couldn't save me. Just believe. Remember that word, believe? Yes, sir. No, I'm sorry. You next, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And then you. Okay.
My question was...
Did that answer your question? I think I tried my best. Oh, go ahead.
My question was about any personal... what's the word I want to use? Any personal... I had to...
Well, you full of the subject. You can't come out like that. You're full of the subject.
Any personal,
I always admire people with no hair at all on their head. Holy Spirit doesn't have any problem getting in. Go ahead, take your time.
Any personal apologies that you received from anyone that came back and that had done you any harm? Not any fixed up apologies or any formal apologies.
Tell the truth about
it.
I can answer that quickly. I don't know if anybody just came to me and said, I've talked to a lot of white people and even some blacks who just generally said things like that. But first of all, I don't look for apologies. I did what I did because I thought I was doing what God wanted me to do. So I didn't have to have an argument with a person who did. And people who disagreed with me, I didn't bother them. And I said to the preachers, I said, look, whatever y'all do, we'll endorse it. Volunteer, whatever you want to do in Birmingham, go ahead. I said, but if you can't endorse ours, just be quiet. I would do a dignified silence. And this is the way it is. So, no, nobody. And then I tell you what I do. I try when I'm talking to people. We may differ, but I try to put people at ease as I am talking. I say what I want to say. I'm not afraid to say it, and I'm going to try to make it the truth. But I don't live so that I'm worried about what folks are going to say, because I know who rules the world and who keeps us in. And I've been in death's jaws, my friend, at least 10 times I can count. But that way you get to where that trust talking about. That song the black choir saying, I never heard no white choir saying this. Turn it over to Jesus and he'll work it out. You ever heard that? Yeah. I don't know the song. I don't go to white churches too much. They wouldn't let us go way back then. I don't know where too many of us go now. The church is still the most segregated hour on earth, isn't it? Okay. Yes.
Fred Shuttlesworth, I'm very honored to be here today. I have a two-part question also. How do you feel about
These this is more two-part than I've had it. Go ahead. Somebody started something. Keep it up.
I'd like to know how you think the race relation is currently that we have today, and how you think Dr. Martin Luther King would feel about the race relationship that we have today.
Well, I don't know how he would feel that. He would be very disappointed that more people, probably, as I am, I can speak to that, have not understood that we've got to do a little bit more than just, as I said a while ago, hug. By this time, with all y'all coming here, and I'm going to take you around and show you that town, I ought to really be pretty solid when I'm showing you something, right? So it's to the black and the white. White people had a harder problem because they were the ruling class. And it's going to be hard for the whites to come out and say, well, I'm sorry. Well, I don't expect that. You don't have to confess your sin to me. Confess it to God and go on and move. Because God knows the heart. And a whole lot of folk testify in church, and more lies are told at funerals than at any other time. He was, she was. And so I had a young man in my church. He said that's what you call tester lying. No, so that's the first part or second part. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, I've asked you both of them, I want to know how you felt about race relations and how you think Dr. King felt.
About what?
Race relations that we currently have today.
Well, I felt bad enough about him way back yonder. I don't want to keep it. It has changed a little bit. At least people, you see, when the law is declared, let's say something here. And there's something righteous and holy about the law. Don't fool yourself. About LAW, we're talking about all our laws are supposed to be based on the model law, right? And then you can simplify it by saying this: as ye would that men should do unto you. What? You can't beat that, can you?
Right.
So if you do that, you don't steal, and don't steal my dog, and I won't steal your cat. All that. You see, we're getting a lot of stuff by not remembering the law. And I would suspect that we got to remember a long time before we had doctors and we got how many phases of middle. I think it's in Deuteronomy 8:6 where Moses got across Moses didn't get across the Jordan, the river, into the promised land. But in Deuteronomy, he had struck, God told him to speak, and he struck the rock. He said, now, of course you did that, you will see it, but you won't go over. But in it, I believe it's 8:6 or 6:8, it says that thou shalt remember, talking to the Israelites, all the way that the Lord thy God has led thee these 40 years. This.